Hi everyone, and welcome to the first Hubraum on Air of 2021. My name is Ida. I'm coming to you live from Hubraum Berlin in our campus here, which is our normal live location. And before we start, I want to say a huge thank you for your patience. I know it's a little bit of a late start today, and even though we are Tech Incubator, we can of course still have technical issues. So thank you for that. So tonight is all about setting you up for success in 2021. And what we have here is a panel full of experts who really weathered the storm of 2020 to teach us all of their best learnings and really set us up for success. So we have a top researcher from the German startup ecosystem. We have perhaps one of the most famous community owners in Berlin, but also in Germany in the tech world. We have a founder working in augmented reality who's both a program and an investment startup with us here at Hubraum. And we have an actual literal futurologist telling us the biggest trends for this year. So we're obviously very excited about that. As I said, I will be a moderator for the night. So we're going to start off with some speaker introductions. And from there, we're going to move on into the real heart of the topic. And at the end, of course, we want to hear all of your questions. So if anything comes to mind, please go to the YouTube live chat. If you're watching right now on our webpage at hubraum.com, there's also a link to the YouTube chat. So make sure you go over there and type any of your questions. I'm sure we would love to answer them. Or if it's easier for you, you can also go on Twitter and use the hashtag HubraumOnAir. We will keep a lookout on all of our platforms. So without further ado, let's start. I would love to hear a quick and sharp introduction from all of our speakers. Let's start with Alexander. Tell us a little bit about your background and what expertise you're bringing into the discussion today.
The old problem, I'm still mute. Thank you very much for having me. It's great to be here. I'm, as you already said, I'm head of research of the German Startups Association. I have a background in sociology and a PhD in this field. Always focused in my research very much on the relation between economy, science, technology, and society. And that kind of neatly plays into the role that I have at the moment at the German Startups Association as the head of research. As an association, we are mainly interested to create the best possible environment for startups and entrepreneurs in Germany. And we do that based on facts and figures. And that's why we do a number of research projects. First of all, the German Startup Monitor that you probably know that we do once a year, giving a general overview about the ecosystem. We're very interested in the issues of diversity within the startup ecosystem. That's why we, for example, do the Female Founders Monitor once a year. And last but not least, we're always looking out for trends, for important technological developments. And together with Hubraum last year, we did a study on artificial intelligence and the role startups play within this field, bringing theory and research kind of into practice.
Perfect. Thank you, Alexander, for that introduction. And also thank you for all the work you're doing for the German startup ecosystem. So speaking of female founders, we have one such founder in our midst today. Dana, can you please give us a quick introduction to LEOAR and your background?
Sure. Hi, I'm Dana Loberg, and I'm the CEO and founder of LEOAR. And I'm a Silicon Valley-based company here in California. We're one of the leading consumer-facing augmented reality apps today. And I think what we've seen as far as trends and with COVID and families and work from home, I think we're going to be talking quite a bit today about the shifts that have happened. And I'm excited to kind of share more about what we've seen in our app. Because our app is a very family-oriented app. You can add unicorns, you can add aliens, you can add dinosaurs. It's a very creative, imaginative, and it's kind of a storytelling type of app. So I'll be excited to kind of share what I've seen in 2020 and what I think will happen in 2021.
Absolutely. We can't wait. So let's just move ahead with introduction so we can get there right away. Molly, you, as I said, are for sure an ecosystem leader here in Germany, but also globally in terms of both female founders, but also the tech ecosystem in general. So can you give us a little introduction to WLOUNGE and MAGDA Group and your work there?
Thank you, Ida, and I'm super happy to be here today. Thank you for having me. As you mentioned, what we are doing in WLOUNGE, it's kind of like something that it started as a super selfish mission that I wish I had that when I started when I was 20 something and built my first company. So the idea is to have a very strong network with, I would say, successful founders, real positive stories, absolutely bringing my background from Israel, Silicon Valley, New York, and also my experience of working with China, with the Asian market, and all of this coming together with working very strongly with politics, with European Commission, and with venture capitals here in Germany, but also in a broader level, because as a startup, you need to work in a global surrounding and not focusing on one market. As you mentioned, working with WLOUNGE, it's one of the USP is not only providing the best platform for business growth, it's also providing the knowledge, the education that diversity is one of the important things of any company to be successful. Go without saying for the venture capitals to be much more alert to invest in diverse team and when they are diversified their portfolio. And once WLOUNGE started to be very strong, I built different team and we are building MAGDA Group, which is a fund of fund to be able to invest in I would say Israelis and European innovation. Of course, we are from Germany and very proudly from Berlin, but we would like to connect the dots to make sure that smart investors, smart money, and our local investors, family offices are very involved into the younger generation that eventually building unicorns here from Germany as well.
Thank you, Molly. It's for sure also an exciting journey ahead in 2021, and we look forward to that. So last but not least, someone who also has a sociology background, if I'm not mistaken, our trend analyst and futurologist over at Hubraum Krakow, we have Sonia. Can you please give us an introduction?
Thank you, Ida, and you are correct. I have a sociologist background, but also a background from industrial design. So I'm an analyst and designer at heart. And in Hubraum, I am part of research and analysis cluster. As you know, in Hubraum, we are focusing on tech, on exploring tech, on giving access to technology. But we are also exploring the user, how user is shaping the technology and how the technology is shaping the user itself. So in our everyday work, we are trying to investigate how the technology and user, how this interaction will give the repercussions for the future. And I think we'll talk about it today.
Yes, absolutely. I'm very much looking forward to how Dana's real world application of that is going to fit in with your trend analysis. So let's just get started. Alexandra, I'd like to start with you to kind of review 2020. So we saw some pretty interesting and different funding behaviors last year. We had an increase in rounds in Germany, slight decrease in the actual amount being invested. But how do you explain the funding behaviors of 2020, and have the rule changed forever, or what's going to happen now in 2021?
Yeah, I mean, I think, thanks for the question. I think, first of all, it's very important to state that the crisis really mattered for startups and really had an impact on startups. Like in our study, the German Startup Monitor that we conducted in the first half of 2020, 74% of the startups said the crisis has a negative impact on us, on our business. So, I mean, that played a role, and that was something that we as an association always emphasized. But at the same time, the current numbers show that especially in the second half, the market was kind of getting back to normal. Many startups were closing deals, and all in all in 2020, and I think this is very good news, we have more financing rounds, more deals than we had in 2019. At the same time, when it comes to the volume, to the deal sizes in general, the numbers is a little lower, and that means that investors have been cautious, especially in the first half of the year when it comes to bigger deals. But I think all in all, what is really interesting is this good news that we have more funding rounds, more startups than ever before in Germany were able to get funding, are able to grow, invest in their product, and this is great news. And I think another great news when you look, for example, at unicorns. We have a number of new unicorns in Germany. We have Personio, we have Mambu, and we also have Sender. We have 3 unicorns, and that shows that not only when it comes to entrepreneurship in the broad perspective, but also when we look on scale-ups, on companies that are competitive on an international level, we are developing as an ecosystem. And I think this is very important and good news. And I think when you asked about if the rules kind of change forever, I think when we think about 2021, it's very important to emphasize what has changed due to the pandemic. I mean, the pandemic has really been a push and still is a push towards digitalization. Think about remote work, think about e-commerce, but also think about health, education. These are all fields that are now on the rise, even for consumers that haven't used it before, for clients that haven't used it before. And in especially education, health, and also in administrations, everyone is now realizing that there are things to do concerning digitalization, that there are needs, there are pain points, and startups basically are there with their products, with the solutions to kind of alleviate work against the pain points and create business models around that. So I think we really have to realize that we are in a process of transformation. A lot of things are changing, and this is really a great opportunity for startups going forward in 2021. And this is also shown in the numbers. When we look at new startups that have been founded in 2020, we actually see a significant rise compared to 2019. We see that 13% more startups have been founded in 2020 compared to 2019. So we really already see this impact, the new needs, the need for new innovative technical solutions. So I think it's a great time for startups, and yeah.
Yes, thank you, Alexander, for sharing. And someone I would love to hear from next is Molly, because you work with founders every day. As you said, you're building an organization that provides what you would have wanted as a new founder. So when you look back at the previous year, what did you see as the main challenges? Because as we've said, it's a good opportunity, but surely for the founders, there were also some challenges. And going ahead into 2021, how can you actively turn those challenges into new opportunities?
So thank you very much for the question. I have to tell you that it's all about the mindset and the culture that we are in. First of all, the stronger survives, you know, in every war. And those that pivot so fast and listen to the market and listen to their customers, those the one that suddenly started to, you know, maybe from scratch or starting to rise, and you see suddenly their name all over and becoming very attractive to investors as well. But I have two channels here. One, I would love to talk about the investor part, and the other one is the founder part. So from the founder part, you absolutely can see that many startups have pivot and rebuilt their product, and everything that came from the COVID-19, it's things that we are talking about them for 2 years, but what happened, it's like everything gets kind of like pushed. It just pushed existing process already, as a remote, as a sustainability, as an impact, as a diversity, as multiple culture. And in the investor part, when it comes to public sector and private sector, we have to say that it's amazing to see investors talking about sustainability go without saying. Venture capitals that, you know, putting on their sign, we are an impact VC. Definitely when it goes to corporates, and I won't name names, but a lot of corporates has their own Stiftung, or even like the M&A, and they are really, really focused on diversity and sustainability and impact. And these are topics that we see heavily coming also from the influence of the European Commission, which I'm quite involved in, the EICS jury and more. We see that the Green Deal and everything coming together. So I would say we need to focus on products that doing revenue showing a great business model, but on the same time providing good. There are products that people really need, and those are the winners of tomorrow. You ask about 2021 and more. Those are the startups that going to be more successful and more attractive to step in. And regarding rules, all rules are changed. I mean, you can be at the morning in New York and in the evening in Munich. So you understand that things are moving faster right now, which means you have to be much more focused on the product you're building, the team you are bringing in, and what is the problem that you're bringing to the market to solve. Because probably in a global level, there are at least 2-3 teams that working on the same things. You have to be smarter and faster than others.
Right, thank you, Molly. And here, I think we have the perfect person to step in, because Dana, Leo AR has gone from victory to victory in 2021, it seems. You were a part of the 5G entertainment program here at Hubraum and also joined our investment portfolio. So for some reason, 2020 for sure worked in your favor. So can you share with us, in hindsight, what you think some of the most important steps were for you and how your priorities shifted with the pandemic? Because as Molly said, for sure that shifted a lot of things for everyone. And going into 2021, how will your priorities change now to keep that up?
Yeah, so like Molly said, there was already like tracks that were starting to grow, and like with working remote and with devices, us being more dependent on mobile and iPads and less on like desktop and this office structure. So that was already starting, but like with COVID, everything just really accelerated the process. So I would say in 2020, there was a lot of, I would say not shock, but we were really, obviously we weren't expecting a pandemic, and the way people were starting to use our app, we saw like a tons of teachers downloading our app, using Leo in the classrooms or giving them the kids homework assignments and trying to re-engage with the kids. So they were using like elephants and tigers and alphabet letters to kind of get the kids more excited about the assignments that they were giving them over Zoom. So I just think that it was interesting as a mobile app in the AR space. It was pretty early when we had started in, 2019. And with the pandemic and with 5G rolling out, which obviously helps to make augmented reality more efficient and better for the consumer, this environment of COVID and 5G, and also the lead AR, the scanner that's part of the camera now in iPhone, and which will probably be in Android, which makes depth and AR more realistic. So like the technology and everything kind of came together in 2020 and really kind of escalated the storytelling and the use of Leo, which is really exciting. So now, we've seen 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds use our app, which is probably something that would not have happened as often before COVID, but because the parents are home working, they're on their iPads, they're on their mobile devices, they're on their laptops. The kids are now also doing the adjustments and also on devices more frequently. And also the 9-to-5 schedule is broken. So there's like the predictability of the usage of mobile is now like 7 days a week, and it's up and down in the mornings and the afternoons, and people wanting to use mobile devices has increased a lot throughout the day than it ever was in the past. So I just think that when I think about 2021, I think we've all kind of realized that there is really no going back to the way we were before. And we've all adapted quickly to this new lifestyle. The children have adapted, the teachers have adapted, the parents have adapted. So in 2021, it's just all about kind of iterating as fast as we can and making it as easy for a 2-year-old to use our app, as easy as a non-technical teacher who's doing kindergarten to be able to kind of bring in more technology to their classrooms, so the kids can get excited again around math, around science, around that, alphabet and music, and get creative with the children, because it's a really exciting time to have 5G and augmented reality coming together, and you can really start to enhance the children's lives in a positive way using the technology.
Absolutely. And to follow up on that, Dana, do you think now that you look back that there were any strategic moments in your decision-making process that also influenced your ability to ride that wave? Because right now it sounds like it was a perfect fit between your product and what ended up happening in the world at large, but perhaps there were also some strategic decisions that you made to move in that direction.
Yeah, so we had made the decision to build an education version of Leo. So there's a Leo, the main app, and then there's Leo AR EDU. And I had made that executive decision probably 6 to 8 months before COVID, not knowing that everyone would kind of shift to online when it comes to education. So I'm just really thankful that, you know, I personally made that decision because I feel augmented reality in the education system is going to be so exciting, especially for third and second world countries that don't have the luxury to go to museums. They don't have money for field trips and the buses. And in AR, you can have a giant whale in your classroom. You can have the tiger and the lion in there, and they're so realistic. So it's now like you can really bring this entire outside world into the classroom. So I think I'm making that pivotal decision to build an education version of Leo was a really smart and good decision. And I really lucked out because I had no idea COVID would hit, and then everything would kind of move to mobile and iPad and Zoom and online and digital. So I just feel thankful that, you know, it was a decision that we'd made, and I was excited to bring AR to students and children. And I think that AR will have huge impacts in the education space.
Yeah, thank you, Dana, for making a really perfect bridge here over to Sonia, because the more we know about the trends that are coming up, the easier it is to make the strategic decisions that will really matter. So Sonia, you are our trend analyst at hubraum. You're basically as close as we will ever get to a crystal ball. And I believe we even have the luxury of seeing a slide to really hone in on the main trends of 2021. So can you give us your top 3 driving forces that you think will actually drive the technology sector in this year?
Okay, so I totally agree with Dana. We have adapted to the new reality quite well, but in 2020, we have seen the digital transformation worth 2 years in 2 months. We have shifted really quickly. And we still in 2021 will have some expectations, especially towards tech. So those expectations can be covered up in 3 driving forces that we are working with, and we think that will have the highest impact on the technology ecosystem in 2021 plus. The first one is digital social proximity. It's a subject that is well known to all of us because we are dealing with digital interactions on our daily basis in work and in our private casual conversations and interactions with our close ones. This subject is also very important for the telecommunication company because it is all about connecting the people. So in 2020, as I said, we have faced the digital transformation and we have switched to the whole digital era and contacting with others through our phones, through our laptops, and seeing each other in frames of a screen. And that thing limits our ability to express ourselves. As you can see right now, I'm trying to gesticulate because when I'm talking, I'm using a lot of gestures. So the digital reality is limiting that. And this is what is important in digital social proximity, the ability to incorporate more senses than only the senses that we are overusing at the moment in digital era, which is hearing and seeing. That one is also creating a new opportunities for AR, such an instance, to create more vivid, more colorful, and more closer digital social proximity. We as hubraum think that subject is very important, and here we are looking for big developments as it is that the internet connection is going to be faster, hello 5G, and the technology is almost there, and we can't wait to sense it. So this is the first driving force. The another one is the responsibility of tech. As Alexander mentioned, we have seen the shift also in education. and this is the responsibility of tech. The role of tech in 2020 has grown. The technology became more responsible. So we should really look out and keep that in mind, that in order to be responsible, we have to look for the important subject that will arise in 2021. It is healthcare, the digital healthcare subject that it's going to be huge, and it's starting to be huge, and it is on a rise. But the whole digital healthcare is built upon data. And as we will see in 2021, the unprecedented amount of new technologies, devices, and sensors that will incorporate digital health, it will arise the concerns among users, how my data is used, how it is collected, and how it's transferred. So that might be an interesting new chapter to the big book of privacy that we are dealing with, and a huge challenge for technology to be responsible here. Also, in the subject of sustainability that Mali mentioned, and I just wrote it down because I think it was very nice what you said, that sustainability and products that provide good. I also think that one is very, very important, and this is the other role of responsible tech. And the third driving forces that we are seeing and think it will be very important in 2021 is the least technological, it's the most human-based, is spirituality. So in digital era, which was 2020, most of 2020 was built on digital, we interacted digitally, and we lost a sense of time and sense with a reality, which made us think that we have to take a big journey into ourselves. That made us vulnerable to the misinformation in the internet. And of course, I'm talking also about the state of our mental health. So I think that in 2021, we should focus on finding our analog mental balance, and that one, it's also very important insight for the technology.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sonia, for sharing that. I'd be very curious to hear from Mali's perspective, because you also mentioned that impact is coming up as such a big topic for startups this year and a big opportunity. What do you think really is the best way to hone in on those opportunities and make them a reality and make them a success? Where do you start?
Thank you, Ida. You know, usually I'm not that quiet, so usually I'm jumping in. I wanted to mention some things. First of all, I want to add that during 2020, we saw that the smart investors kept, the investment on, and we heard a lot of German VCs that kind of like hold back a term sheet and so, but and that was like very bad also to the economy. Coming back to what you mentioned regarding impact and sustainability, also according to what Dana mentioned, I want to also emphasize on that, also as an Israeli or former Israelis, and Dana, she is in Silicon Valley, which I know very well the culture, and my sister is also in California. The educational system, I have two teenagers in the German educational system. It's like the maybe third world country in terms of technology. So I wanted to encourage Dana also, to bring your product also to Germany, although it will take ages to bring it to schools, but we definitely see what's happening right now in the German schools when it comes to even teachers that willing to use Zoom. Not necessarily all of them are really happy or even dare to deal with it, while in other countries, laptop or at least some iPad or some tablet are obviously part of books and papers for schools. So this is something we also need to share here, because we are focusing on the German market, and when it comes to education, it's still way behind. And Ida, my first company was educational toys for kids, so this topic is very dear to me. to take care of the younger generation. And this is maybe leading me to answering you also with the most important things is the community. People tend to use this word as a trend or something that it's kind of like underestimating the power of community. So we are talking about the impact of the community, literally to be able to measure the value, the benefit, and the impact of being part of specific community. This is also something that we're going, all of us, we see it coming from Japan, from US, definitely also from Israel, touching community and how much it's important for startups and also for investors to be part of it, to be a better investor and definitely to be a better founder.
Absolutely. Alexandra, I'm really curious to hear if that's something that you also observed, that 2020 brought people together more, both startups and investors, to solve these challenges and really work as a community in Germany, but perhaps also beyond.
Definitely. Very good point, Molly. I mean, what we realized as an association, since we strongly support, I would say, ecosystem actors who are in different regions, kind of trying to do the same thing as we do, supporting the ecosystem, we really saw that they kind of realized that now they have to step up, connect founders, connect investors, connect everybody within the ecosystem. For example, together with the RAG Stiftung in the Ruhr region in North Rhine-Westphalia, we did a project, and we were also involved in their communication and in the events and projects they did in this region to kind of connect the ecosystem, get each other to talk to one another when it comes to the challenges, but also when it comes to the opportunities of the crisis. So I think building up the community is very important. And then from starting from that, realizing what are the pain points at the moment, the problems, and at the same time kind of creating a vision where we are going to go together. And I think that is very important for players within the ecosystem that we are one of, to kind of contribute to strengthen the ecosystem as a whole, to kind of giving certain regions, cities, and other actors an identity and an idea of where they are going and where they're headed.
Yeah, and coming from hubraum, which is of course an incubator working with early stage startups to try and give them more tools and resources and connectivity to support their goals. Dana, you were part of our program last year. Would you say that that had an effect on the business that year, and how would you estimate the power of community in the context of founding a startup?
Yeah, so we did join the 5G Deutsche Telekom program, and I would say that was pretty big for us. In general, in the past, this is my second company. I sold my first one in 2016. And I would say that things are opening up for big companies. Like, I consider Deutsche Telekom like a corporate big company, and I consider myself a very small startup. And I started to see that, like, we were really building projects together, and it was pretty intensive. Like, we got, mentored from a lot of players within Deutsche Telekom. And I think when we're talking about things changing, like, I don't know if that would have happened in the past pre-COVID, of like us really trying to collaborate and work together to bring 5G to the consumer, and like how a tech company like myself can really bring bigger impact to Deutsche Telekom. Because usually in the past, it's kind of like big companies always kind of work with big companies. And now I feel like there's more opportunity for startups to really participate and collaborate with bigger companies, because, it's kind of like a leveling of the playing field. And I would say that community is always really important. And I think that as long as we're all able to continue a conversation and collaborate and work together, and not kind of see others as competitors in ways, like I really enjoyed in the accelerator program at Deutsche Telekom, there were other AR companies there. We were all doing different things, and we were all working with Deutsche Telekom in different ways, actually. And it was nice you know, I didn't, there wasn't a bone in my body that was, you know, like jealous or anything. It's like, we're all on this cutting edge technology. We're trying to bring it to the people faster during this time, because like maybe not everyone was prepared for this situation. And now like the startups are very nimble and we're able to work quickly, and we have like very short deadlines. So it was really amazing to kind of see the collaboration between a huge company like Deutsche Telekom and then all the small startups in our accelerator, and the community that we kind of all built together with the different time zones and the projects that we came up with. It was really fun to watch. And I'm not sure it would have been like so smooth and everyone being so collaborative pre-COVID. I think that COVID kind of accelerated that, like more of a warmth and empathy for everyone in general. And that's kind of seeping into the jobs in the workforce.
Yeah. Sonia, do you see that as a surprise on any level, or is that really in line, I guess, with the spirituality trend that you mentioned and more sort of emotional resonance in the digital world? First question. Second question, of course, when we talk about tech trends, we can talk about both startups and corporates and different types of players within the ecosystem. Would you say that the trends play out differently for a corporate compared to a startup? And are there any specific trends that we should be aware of in that sense?
I think that the most important one, and it's also connected with the spirituality and the subject of community, it's first of all listening to the customers, or not even the customers, listening to the people, because the human is the most important factor here. And I'm not using the word user, I'm using the word human, because I think we have to shift our thinking towards it. And I think that what is pretty the same for the startups and for the companies. And when we will do that, we will find ourselves in a new ecosystem of new values that obviously arise in 2020.
Yeah. Thank you for that. So I'm very curious to pick in some questions now from the audience. One here is asking for you, Alexander, how come there are more investment rounds but less money invested? Why is that?
If you just look at the numbers, I mean, it's a great question. When you look at the numbers, what you see is that the bigger rounds in 2020 have been fewer compared to 2019. So the rounds about 100 million or more have a decrease compared to 2019. And the big rounds, they make up the majority of the money spent in the startup ecosystem. And when you look at the numbers, for example, you always have to do two things. First, look at the volume, the total capital, and then look at the deals that have been made to get an idea of the scale-ups, of the growth, and also get an idea of the opportunities within the ecosystem as a whole. And for the reasons I can only speculate, I would assume that investors were kind of cautious, especially in the first half, when they didn't really know after the first lockdown how it's going to play out, what is going to happen. And we're also really cautious investing in certain sectors, I think. Think about tourism, travel tech, stuff like that. There was a very big bet when you think back, and still is. So I think they were cautious, but at the same time, as the numbers show, investments are catching up when you look at the numbers, but also when you look at the volume. So I'm thinking that in 2021 we will see an increase, and probably we'll even see that it's kind of catching up to the pace that we have before, because before we had kind of a continuous increase every year. So when you see that this year we have a slight increase, we can kind of expect that it's going to go up next year again.
Yeah.
And can I help Alexander here?
Yes, please.
Because I do, this is a huge part in our work, and I have many reasons for that, not speculation. Also with the VCs that working with us very, very closely, and also with the European Commission. Same venture capital, same guys investing in the same guys. This is why you see big rounds going to the same probably follow-on investment. And we do know that the strongest founders here in Germany, when they need B round, C round, they go outside, they go to Asia, they go to the US, because it's just moving slower here. And this is something we're working very closely. Go without saying, when it's touching like first-time founders, when it comes to female founder, or even like second-time founders, this is where we need to step in more with the access that we are talking about. So it's a very, very good question that coming from the audience, because it's a big pain point that we see mainly here in Germany, less and less in Israel and US. Same money goes to the same direction, or more money goes to a same direction. And this is something we need to make sure it's going to change, because we will build bubbles and not successful ecosystem as a whole.
And Molly, perhaps you can build on that as well with another question from the audience, because with Germany, as you mentioned, it's not only about impacting the investment scene and growing and accelerating that, but also digitalization in general. So based on everything you said about how education and technology might move slowly, what would you say are the top things we can do to speed up that process?
I mean, first of all, we need to stop being followers. You know, when things are coming to Germany, it's already old news in Silicon Valley and Israel, you know, in Tel Aviv. This is first things. We need to put ourselves in the forefront and become a leader. And we're totally capable of doing this. We do have the capital, we do have the infrastructure, and we do have the industry, Mittelstand family office. It's here. It's a very, very strong platform to be successful as a founder, as an innovator here. But unfortunately, and I'm saying unfortunately because there is a lot of work stepping here, there, you know, this is why we're building leadership program, incubation, everything. It's a lot about the culture, and also it's a lot about the business atmosphere, that, as you talked already about, the being a risk averse and things are moving slower than in other ecosystem. And this is something we all need to work and to educate, truly educate politicians, educate decision makers, and this is a majority of the work that we're doing.
Yeah. So Dana, coming from your perspective, sitting in Silicon Valley, how do you see this? I guess the trends, of course, are a little bit different regionally. What do you think are the main driving forces that you're looking out for in 2021, specifically in the US climate?
So for me, I feel in 2021, I mean, I know that our markets and Wall Street have been doing phenomenal here in the States, irregards to like what's happened politically. So I definitely feel like in 2021, I don't see much of a slowdown in investment because of the amount of money that investors are probably making in Wall Street over the past, 8 to 10 months. It's been kind of like record highs. So I'm excited that I think like it won't, in the US at least, I don't think it's hugely impacted by COVID anymore. There was definitely a freeze in 2021, I would say like February, March, and April, as kind of no one knew what was going on and probably everyone was fearing for their lives and their parents' lives. But now I think in 2021, everything is really, it feels really normal now, like doing a Zoom call and having conversations over email and over Zoom is kind of, deals are getting done and money's being wired. So I don't think there's going to be like any kind of freeze or hold up in 2021 investment wise in my head.
Yeah. Isn't it funny how quickly Is she with us right now? I noticed Sonia might have dropped off connection wise. Sonia? She's off. Okay, no worries. So let me ask you more of a high level question. If you could only pick your core one piece of advice for any startup founder in the tech world in 2021, what would it be? Who wants to go first? Let me start with Dana. Let's jump back to you.
Sure. Any kind of advice I would say for any aspiring entrepreneur, someone who has a startup, is constantly, be iterative, be open, be flexible. I feel like everything's really unpredictable in general. If you want to talk spiritually, like, we're all moving to a new age of Aquarius and things are just completely change post-COVID. And I think that as a startup, you can't be so definitive on, you know, what you're building. And I think that like there could be more changes coming over the next 10 years. So just be open to changing quickly if you have to in order to survive. It's just kind of become the new normal, I feel, as a founder in this new space that we're all in.
Yeah, openness for sure. Alexander, what's your take on this one?
I would, I think, very generally recommend to put yourself out there at the moment. As I said, it's a phase of transformation. And as Dana rightfully said, things are back to normal when it comes to investing. So I would recommend to put yourself out there, because now there are so many opportunities, there are so many needs, so many problems to be solved.
I love that. Optimistic for sure. And Molly, you are at the heart of all of these opportunities, witnessing them and creating them every day. What's your core piece of advice?
Like Alexander, I will be very optimistic, and I would like to refer to both channels. First of all, they are the female founders, and I'm sorry, I'm split into two groups, but it is what it is. This is the reality. So as a female founder, this is the momentum on history, the best momentum to be a female founder. So I would like to encourage more women to become a founder, to lead a company, dare to put themselves in the forefront, and to be innovator. And on the same time, at the moment you succeed, don't forget to pull out others to make sure you're not going to be the last one, and become an investor, because this is the best way to give back, either to the society, either to as a skills, as a mistake you did, and make other people or other journeys better or faster. And in general, good guys are with us for sure, and we really see a great deal flow, and more investors really keen to invest and to deploy money. And I would definitely say to any investor, dare to think big. Don't count on small local market because it's easy, because you know it. Start with it as a small test case or like pilot, but think big from the first step. I never thought local, even when I was here in Berlin or in Tel Aviv. And you know, today, talking about digitalization, globalization, no one can really act as a local and tend to be a unicorn or to be a very strong leader in a global level if they are not thinking global.
Absolutely, and that goes back to the mindset question, as you were saying. We do have actually quite a local question from the audience, nonetheless, for you, Alexander, on your opinion on the new planned legislation in Germany on stock options that incentivizes startup investments and will ease the process of employees getting paid in company stocks. Do you think that that will excel, that will help Berlin and Munich to excel as startup ecosystems globally?
I think employee stock options are very important to accelerate startups, especially when you're talking about scale-ups, when you talk about growth. I mean, when you look at that, there's always this problem of dry income that needs to be solved politically. But when you look at successful ecosystems, like in the US, especially in Silicon Valley, stock options or options in the company have always been very important aspect to kind of share also the success with your employees, make them more motivated, make them identify with the company. And I think that's a very important tool that needs to be utilized more in Germany.
Yes, absolutely. So there's also interesting legislation coming up this year, which is for sure something we should be paying attention to as well. Yeah, so sadly, we lost Sonia on the line. Otherwise, I would have loved to ask her how hubraum can support in 2021. And as a hubraum representative, I will give a quick note to say that you should definitely sign up to our newsletter, check out our website, because we do run programs just like the one that Dana and WLOUNGE was part of to help you really accelerate in the coming year. So please do check that out. And otherwise, I would love to hear any final thoughts, maybe also in response to the trends that Sonia mapped out. Are these trends that you recognize? And do you see any particular areas where startups could really make use of that as an opportunity for a new business or to pivot their existing business? Molly, would you like to start?
Yes, absolutely. From my point of view, I would like to see it as the bigger picture, as more capital is stepping in, as Germany in general starting to be more attractive to international or even to a local investor, which is very, very important, because eventually, as questioned from the audience as well, as we know, as an ecosystem leader here, there is not enough capital available for startup to grow as fast as they need here. So be optimist. I think we're in a good, I would say, wave and in a positive movement. And I would really want to say that impact, sustainability, diversity, supporting and see more female founder, definitely more and more in Germany, German culture market are the top focus that we should all have here for 2021, at least 2022 as well.
Thank you, Molly. Alexander, do you want to give your take?
I mean, I would directly follow up on what Molly just said. I think it's very much about tapping into the potentials that are out there, female founders, and more generally just creating an ecosystem where we have the best possible opportunities for founders, because I'm not the one telling the founders what the technological trends are and what they need to watch out for. They know what's going on in their particular field, and it's our job to kind of create the best possibilities on a societal, political level, kind of. So from my side, it's always the same answer. Just creating a very, very good environment for founders, and then they will basically come up with the products, with the solutions, kind of in their particular field that is useful, and that's going to bring us forward.
So startups should also trust their instincts. That's probably very important.
Definitely.
Yeah. Dana?
So Sonia had mentioned a couple things that kind of stuck out to me. One of them was the connectivity and people being able to connect, whether it's through a Zoom box or through mobile. And then the second thing she said was kind of about mental health and spirituality as people start to revisit themselves and kind of figure out what they want in life. And I think that also goes towards balance. And I think there's always kind of an attention between like tech and like being on the phone or being off the phone. And now like we're really confronted with it now that we're all working remotely in our homes. So I just think that it's an interesting combination of finding that balance with your family, with your technology devices, and staying connected, is always going to be important for the human race. And any way that a founder can make any of these aspects better and enhance everyone's lives using technology, I think it's always like a good thing. So that's what I was going to say about the topic.
Yeah, we won't stop until everyone is connected, and you'll for sure be a big part of that. Dana, I have quite a fun question from the audience for you, which literally says, what do you think is the most fun implementation of your product in the future, or where do you see that in terms of a use case?
Yeah, no, I'm super excited for the future of AR. For me, I think the coolest part will be when we have like glass and everything is hands-free, because right now you're very limited to the small window of your mobile device or your iPad. And I think having a digital layer in your world, so maybe when your kids get up or you go to your backyard, you can have like dinosaurs dancing the way you want them to dance. Maybe they interact with you because they're smart AR objects. That would be pretty interesting as far as kind of building and living in any world that you can imagine and having it here on Earth. That's kind of the goal of AR, I feel. And I'm really excited to kind of see things go to glass, and really our environment will completely change how we want to be, how and what we want to be surrounded by and with.
And I'd love to also follow up on that with Alexandra and Molly. What use cases or pieces of technology are you actually most excited for in the new year? Molly, do you want to go first?
Yes. Usually I'm not tending to focus on specific one, because I know that with this I'm kind of like underestimate the others. But when it's always touching to giving back on a sense or industry that touch the mobility, which we see that it's on the rise big time, and you know, gigafactory is coming here as well, so probably it will be a game changer. We already see this as a game changer. And definitely healthcare, educational, and everything that touch AR, as Dana mentioned. When you combine that with healthcare and education, which means it doesn't have to be only for kids, it can be also for you know, the older generation. I think it's contribute a lot, and you know, related to community, feeling the belonging, and people, you know, they don't need to live in the same country anymore. So we make our globus super reachable and easy to reach out to almost everyone, anyone. And I think it will come due to this technology.
Thank you for opening our minds to that global perspective. It's absolutely something we cannot underestimate in 2021. Sonia is back. Welcome back. Before we close, I would love to hear from you, Sonia. If you could give startup founders in our audience one piece of advice that really stands out to you in 2021, what would it be?
I think, first of all, what I already mentioned is to listen to the users, to the human. But first of all, think about what we really want, and sometimes joy the missing out, joy the experience of missing out, so the JOMO. And I think that's the piece of advice in the whole digital world, might be very important for 2021.
Love it. The joy of missing out. And on that note, let's wrap up the hubraum on Air, the first one of 2021. I hope it was very useful to you as a founder. We talked about community, we talked about impact, we talked about proximity and AR, and how these technologies are becoming more and more relevant in the modern world, and no less after the pandemic. If you're curious to learn more about this, you should absolutely go and look at hubraum.com, our website. Also, please feel free to follow us on social media if you're not doing that already, to stay in touch with the next events that are coming up. And actually, one quick question that we can address from the audience was, well, you're talking about sustainability and you're talking about spirituality, but those aren't hubraum topics. And actually on that, I would like to announce that our next hubraum on Air will be centered on sustainability in the tech world. And we will be announcing a different set of initiatives on this topic, because it is one of the greatest core trends of 2021 and for the tech industry going forward. So with that, I would like to wish all of you a really lovely night, and thank you for tuning in. Thank you for staying with us through the delay, and we hope you have a great week, and not just that, but a great year ahead.